It's your girl Kava Queen, and today on Tanoa Talks we have Saimone, who is the owner of the brand Wakanavu. And I'm super excited to hear all about your brand. And thank you for joining. Can you tell me about what you do?
Yeah, thanks for having us. So we started Kava Farming probably late 2016, early 2017. Was living in Fiji at the time, and so we have two farms in Vanua, and essentially, grow our own kava and export it around the world, as well as we do Tongan kava. We're trying to get some Solomon Island kava in later this year. Also Saimone kava, Vanuatu kava, and what other kava do we do? We've got some PNG kava, and we're just doing everything kava related. And essentially, I guess we started off with the brand because we had a story, I guess, from growing the kava ourselves, and just wanted to share the journey with everyone.
So. And I gotta say, you have like an amazing brand, amazing Instagram. I really love how you highlight the farming behind kava. So can you tell me a little bit about what that's like? Like, what is a day in like a kava farmer's life?
Yeah, I can't take too much credit for the branding because that's Victoria, my wife. She does all the design stuff, and I guess supports the business from the back, and then I guess I'm out in the front of it. But yeah, I wish I did more on Instagram. I just have no time to kind of upload content, and edit videos. But yeah, for most farmers, it's early starts, like 4:30, 5 o'clock on the farm, you're up. I guess the main thing just around productivity. So we have a thing that's called kana dhaka. So essentially, like what that is so kana in Fijian means to eat, and then thaka means to work. And so it's a common thing on bigger farms in which the business owner or the farmer will provide all the food, transportation, cover all the expenses. So things like Wi-Fi, phone top-ups. We cover all that stuff for the workers. And then, so they're up around 5 o'clock in the morning. And so before breakfast, it's planting root crops like cassava, dalo, yams, kumala. What else? And then other vegetables.
Like starting from scratch, yeah.
Yeah, so essentially it's, I guess, from a food security perspective on the farm, and because you're in such remote areas, just getting into town can be quite a bit of a mission. And then also we're quite far into the mountains during the wet season when our Land Cruiser can't get up the farm roads. Or you have to walk. It's a long way. So if a lot of our food we can grow ourselves, we try to do that. And so back to the day, essentially they will, before breakfast, get up, do all the kind of dhaka type stuff, and then have breakfast. Most of the time it's maintenance, weeding, and that's a mission. You have no idea how fast weeds grow, especially kind of in the wet season as well. In the dry season, they don't grow as fast. But just, it's a nightmare trying to manage, I guess, large scale farming. Maintenance is that, planting, clearing land. What else do we do? And then I guess what a lot of people may see, whether it's on Instagram, as the back end, which is the harvesting of kava, but there's a whole lot of work that goes into maintaining and planting the kava that takes four or so years. I guess in terms of the day, it's like rain or shine. You're out, getting the work done. I can't really take much credit for a lot of the work because I'm half the time I'm not even on, well, with COVID, I'm not on the farm. But prior to COVID, I was month on, month off. so between New Zealand and Fiji. And so when I'm in Fiji, we'll try and scale up operations and have, we might have 24 workers on either 1 or 2 farms, and try to get as much done in the month that I'm around. And then I guess kind of going down to a skeleton crew. So I think this week we've got maybe half a dozen boys working on our farm in Bula, and they're planting and clearing land at the moment. And on our other farm that was hit quite badly by Cyclone Yasa, our farm manager's just working on his own this week. He might get 1 or 2 other boys, but yeah, not too much on that side. Yeah,
well,
I think I might
know how much goes into farming kava, because I don't think a lot of people understand the intensity of it and how hard it really is. Like you said, it's at least 4 years of just clearing plants, and then also, like you mentioned, the cyclone and that kind of thing happens in the South Pacific all the time. So a lot of people don't know how much hard work the farmers have to do to grow kava.
It's getting quite bad with the cyclones. Like when we started, it was just after after Tropical Cyclone Winston, which devastated a lot of the agricultural sector of Fiji. And then, within 5 years to be hit with another cyclone of that magnitude, it was pretty devastating for a lot of people, including us. But I guess you just it's quite depressing after you do so much work, and then you see the damages. But you kind of just got to bounce back, and that's part and parcel of the farming side. I guess we're just lucky that and I was actually talking to someone yesterday about it, a guy, the owner of Lamy Kava, and he was talking about just focusing on one thing, like either focus on the export or focus on the farming. And I guess for us, the reason we chose to do both was, if you just farmed and a cyclone came through and just destroyed nearly everything, you're left with nothing. Whereas for us, we can still bounce back from the retail and wholesale side of kava. So, if it means that with our mature crops that were decimated, for the next kind of 18 months, 2 years, if we're buying, from.
So that's like how long it takes to bounce back from a cyclone?
Yeah, it's more so like our plants that are around 2.5 years, 3 years, the smaller plants didn't get damaged as much as the mature plants. So we can still buy kava off, whether it be our workers, family, and, help them out at the same time, and then still kind of maintain our, or supply the markets that we have. Yeah.
That's really good. What do you feel like? Do you feel like your company's more going towards exporting, or with the cyclones farming? Or?
Like we've always focused on the export side. I guess the benefit we have is because I'm between New Zealand and Fiji, we can do both. Whereas a lot of other people, they have to rely, like you just focus on, if you're in Fiji, you focus on export. If you're in America, if you're in New Zealand or elsewhere around the world, you focus on importing and retailing, and whereas I guess we have control over the whole supply chain, and we know, when you look at the powder, I'm actually not even drinking my own kava. I'm trying some Bula Vinaka that I got given by Avanesh. He actually lives not too far away from me, so
awesome
type stuff, and I guess Instagram. He came around and met a few of the boys, so just trying out. And the good thing is it's Sabu kava as well, where we're based.
Yeah, I want to ask you about the kava scene in New Zealand. What is it like?
It's more from a cultural perspective. Like there's one kava bar. Well, actually, the kava bar in the US sense, we have one of those types of kava bars, Four Shells, which is up in Auckland. So I've been there a couple of times, and there are kava bars which have been around for a long time, which is more so like empty well, not really empty. It's like a hall, and then there's one person that's mixed. You can buy the kava, mix it yourself, or they mix it for you by the basin. And there might be a pool table, projector, and it's like a big space with not really much else but just people. And that's more of a kind of a traditional kind of kava drinking spot. And yeah, I mean, it's cool. They're different, like different vibes. I think there's one not too far away from me, but I haven't even been to visit it yet. But I think in New Zealand, the statistics are around maybe 5 to 7 tons a month of kava. So a decent amount of kava comes in. Majority of it's for traditional market Fijians and Tongans. There's some seasonal workers, from Vanuatu and that, which Tongans like drinking Tongan kava, Fijians want Fijian kava. That's generally speaking how it works. And there's not as many of. I think in Vanuatu their population's only 140 or 100 something thousand, so there's not as many of them around the world. Although they're one of the biggest producers of kava, I guess their main markets are the US, places like New Caledonia, Micronesia, and the pharmaceutical market, whether that's exporting over to China or anywhere else in the world that's doing extracts, Europe. The
kava scene is like really just blowing up globally.
I mean, sorry, back to the New Zealand kava scene. I didn't really know too much about the kava scene, because I'd be spending half of my time in Fiji and the other half of the time, like, I'd be trying to spend more time with family and that stuff to make up for the absences. But what I did hear was when it came into the COVID lockdown type stuff, the first round of lockdowns, a lot of the kalapos were still meeting up, whether it's at church like halls, and they're on Facebook Live, and everyone else is in lockdown, and these guys are mixing up and having a good old time. And so from that I came to learn that I think there may be like 500, don't quote me on it, it was about a year ago when I heard the statistic, but it may be something like 500 clubs. A lot. And I had seen some other statistics that might be that there's kind of like 28,000, might be a couple of years ago now, but 28,000 regular kava drinkers that would meet and drink or consume kava most weeks. So there's definitely a kava scene in New Zealand, but it's more so at people's properties. It's not out in a social sense at a bar, kava bar as such.
That's because like a lot of those people are from like Polynesia, or Melanesia.
And so I guess you live in New Zealand, and then you may miss the cultural aspect, and that reminds you of home. So you catch up with like-minded people that enjoy kava and speak your language and so forth.
Me and Sam talked about that when I interviewed him, how kava connects you to your roots, and how, like, regardless of where you are, if you're a Polynesian person or a Melanesian or Micronesian and you're drinking kava, you just feel like more connected. So what do you love? Feel like that cultural tie to it? And
I guess being like in Fijian you call it kailoma, which is like a hafakasi. So being part Fijian, it's like I grew up outside of the culture, and also and I think it's probably apply across the Polynesian sense and not just Fijian. It's if you're living abroad and you're outside of the church, you like we didn't early on we were kind of involved. There was a big, where I'm from, Fijian Methodist congregation in Wellington. Now it's like splintered out a lot more with all the different denominations. But once you kind of step outside of that, then the cultural side, you're not as connected, I guess. So for me, getting involved with kava was huge in terms of, like you say, getting back to your roots. I guess it enabled me to travel back and forth to Fiji a lot more. I mean, even though I was living in Fiji at the time, and then we moved back to New Zealand, but it brought me closer and to family in terms of, you go and visit the village. I think before I went back to the village to start kava farming, like it might have been, I can't even remember, might have been a decade or something, before prior to my last visit. Whereas, I'd be there every month outside of COVID. So, I'm definitely stoked how kava has brought me closer to, I guess, your ancestral links and, learning about the culture and everything about kava. I guess I don't consume kava for the medicinal side of it. My consumption of kava is more the social aspect and cultural, I guess. Yeah.
I love that. Did you expect your company to kind of like blow up the way it did? Because I know like so many people know you in the kava community. And so when you first started, did you expect to do all of this? Because you make merch.
I think not so much like blow up. I think the kava community is just so small.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. Like people in the kava community, like if they think of people that are involved with kava, they probably think of yourself, Kava Saw, who else is kind of Matt Masafilo with Kava Fied. I guess a lot of people in the kava community wouldn't really know of, we're just mentioning Tyler earlier. And, he's been a huge like influence in terms of, learning, so much stuff. And
he taught me like everything.
So. Like, I mean, if I was to kind of think of who has influenced, I guess, my journey with kava, there'd be like more than 100 different people, whether it's from farmers through to exporters, people on the scientific side of things. It's crazy how kava manages to bring everyone together in that sense. But I guess from tying in, we're talking about like social media and did I expect it to go as it did? Like I only really use Instagram. I've never had my own personal Facebook. So sorry, let me turn these notifications off. So we don't really push, like for Facebook, it's just linked to Instagram. And for me, Instagram's easy when I have time because you can just upload stories from your phone when you're on the go. The only downside with it is most of the areas where we farm, there's no network, there's no reception. So I can't, like I might be on the farm for like 2 or 3 days before I get any network. So like your stories and stuff, I realized you'd take a hold of the stories and they just expire after 24 hours before they even upload. So now I realize I got to take it on my phone and then later upload or edit. But just finding the time to do all that stuff.
Well, you guys still do great. You got to give yourself more credit because I love your Instagram.
Thank you. I need to do that.
I had to pick a kava brand that was like my favorite. It would probably be yours.
Okay. Thanks for that. Yeah, no, we try. I think we just try to be authentic in terms of just share this, I guess, just take people on the journey in terms of what, we do. And it's definitely not, and I think it might tie into like the, talking about the farming side. It's, people, a lot of people, and myself included, like when we got started, you just think, kava farming, you plant the kava, it grows, you do a bit of weeding. After 4 years, you harvest it and it's a lucrative market, which it is, but there's just a lot more to it and it's a lot more challenging, essentially. There's a lot of work that goes in behind the scenes, and there's also like a lot of risk. We're talking about the climate effects, and that, I guess, if you're a vendor, importer, a middleman, exporter, you don't incur any of those risks because you only get the kava when you pay for it. So like if you have cash, you buy the kava. You don't have cash, you don't have kava. Because I mean, in Fiji, I'm speaking about Fiji. It's farmers are very hesitant to give anything on consignment or on credit because there's so many people that are involved in the kava industry in Fiji, and 9 times out of 10, you just can't really trust people, which is unfortunate. But I guess it also comes from the circumstances, I guess, as well. Theft is a big problem as well for farming. So you definitely have a lot of challenges when you.
That's hard either too,
managing farming remotely is not easy. Hence why I would normally be there month on, month off. It's like enough time for shit to go wrong that you can fix it. But
Well, I definitely hope people understand that, when you drink kava, you gotta look at that bowl and be like, think about how much work went into this, how much risk. This kava could have gotten jacked.
No. Yeah, there's definitely like a spiritual side to kava as well. Like there's in Fiji, there's the term wani vanua, and so and which we kind of try to use on the wholesale side. And what wani vanua means is wai means water in Fijian, and ni it means like of or the, and then vanua has kind of a few multiple meanings. Vanua, and it's the same in Tongan, being whanua, means it's the people, the land, and the culture. So I guess when people talk about kava, it's like, yes, you're consuming something that's come from the land, being the kava plant itself, but then you're also consuming the culture. You're consuming, the essence of, how people live. So.
Extremely. I know we've talked about this before, but that's so important, like as a brand, to like really remind people that it's a cultural thing. Because what I see is like, people take kava and they try to like sell it. And, it's so much more than that. And like so many people don't understand.
Yeah. And I think that comes with a lot of the benefits of kava. I guess it's just, there's a lot of different indigenous cultures. And I guess if you're from outside of that, it's just kind of understanding and coming with that open-mindedness and respect, I guess, that something as kava does deserve. But from when you talk about kava, and how it's like changed people's lives and helped people, a lot of the time it's not actually just about the kava. It's about the talanoa, and it's about the interaction with others, and I guess the meaningful conversations. I was talking to someone who used that example of a lot of Fijians go into the British Army.
I didn't know.
It's a weird thing. Like if a lot of people, if you ever go into someone's home in Fiji, I guess the dream for Fijian or young Fijian kids or young men is, and this may have changed, but whenever we visited Fiji, and we would generally, growing up, we'd be in Fiji at least once or twice a year, but you go into somebody's home and then you would see a photo, right up towards the top of the roof. Kind of the most prominent photo is of a son in the British Army uniform, or playing for Fiji, or going, if not making the national team, playing overseas. So that's kind of the dream, really, is getting into the British Army or playing rugby overseas for young Fijian men. Well, at least previously it was. Maybe now it's getting into farming. But, the price of kava and that, let's say 10, 20 years ago wasn't like that. So anyway, tying back to this example, someone had told me was they were talking about PTSD, and it was very noticeable with returning servicemen, the difference between how Fijians from the British Army handled things, or was it the assimilation or reintegration back into the community and family life from a war zone, compared to a lot of the British soldiers. And what this person was explaining to me was that, they drank a lot with British Army soldiers or officers. And they were saying that, when these Fijians come back from war, they, some of the first, apart from seeing their family, some of the first things that they do is catch up and around a Tanoa and for the evening share a few basins of kava together, talanoa, and that's kind of their way of unpacking things and sharing their experiences and I guess being there for one another and just having that safe space that kava brings. Whereas a lot of the British Army or the non-Fijian servicemen, what is their avenue? Do they go to counseling? Do they turn to alcohol? Do they bottle it up? Whereas for a lot of the Fijian boys, they're able to manage a lot better. So, yeah, I think that's another cool thing.
That's amazing.
It's not even like when you actually look at it, it's not so much really the kava. It's what kava. It's the environment that you're in and what kava brings about, and talking about the spiritual side, I guess, of kava.
Yeah, and they get to have community. There's people there for them. That's really amazing.
Yeah, definitely. Bula.
Bula, I know, I need another bowl. Woo.
Yeah, and then I was saying before, I thought, why not, since we're doing this podcast, have one of these kava shots.
Oh, yeah, so you're going to do one?
Yeah, I'll do it once I finish my aloo boil.
Okay. They're super strong.
Yeah, it says 3. Actually, we had, you missed out on the Zoom, the last Zoom we had.
Yeah,
we got some of the Polynesian gold, the 30% CO2 extract. And I had two or three guys I regularly drink kava with come over, and Avanesh from Bula Vinaka came, and that's how he dropped off a few of his kava packets. And so I thought it was a good idea to chuck in that Polynesian gold into the Tanoa with our regular kava. And man, it really, you're already sitting down, but it sat you on your ass properly. Like it was.
Oh yeah, strongest.
It was a strong hit, and I think they were saying in the kava bars, I think they're called like cloud breakers or something. And they have 3 grams. Like you might, one cloud breaker is 3 grams of it. Yeah. And the packet was 50 grams. And so we had that on top of our other kava. But it's elusive because you see 30% extract and you're like, oh yeah, if the kava you're drinking's waka between 8 to 10%, 11%, 12%, whatever it be, so the extract's 30% stronger. But it's actually, the ratio is 40-1.
Yeah.
So it's not 3 times stronger. It's and I think also maybe with those extracts, it may be like more bioavailable. So like it's the effects on you are far more intense than just your regular kava.
Yeah. When I worked at what I would sell to people.
Yeah.
To get the real kava for their first time, because a lot of people.
And I think that's that's probably the direction of kava is for the emerging market, is it has to be towards the extract direction, and I'm not talking about like the ethanol solvent type extract, but like clean, when it's CO2 extracted, the carbon dioxide dissipates. So I think that's probably one of the cleanest methods of extraction, other than aqueous extraction, which is your traditional kava, but you're never going to get the levels of cavalactones. Because if people are in kava bars and it's not cheap, much the same as a normal bar, you're going to want people to get, you want them to get the effects, instead of just having 1 or 2 showers of kava, complain about the taste, and then bag the effects. And so I think it's a huge growth market which is awesome for kava farmers around the South Pacific. Majority of the extraction market comes out of Vanuatu. But yeah, hopefully in the future, and once we ramp up production in the next few years, recovering from the cyclone, hopefully we can send, containers ourselves for extraction. But yeah, it'd be cool to see in just regular bars, instead of just having a non-alcoholic soda, having kava as an option, for people that don't drink alcohol. Yeah.
And it is like a solid option. Like people who don't know like what kava is, if you want to drink something else besides alcohol.
Yeah, like have you tried Brent and at the Declines Kava Bar? Have you tried their extracted? Yeah, you should try one of those. I've got I think 2 or 3 bottles left over upstairs. It's like might be like a pink lemonade, a ginger beet. Maybe a mojito. Real nice package. Yeah.
Okay.
So I got a few of those to try that out, and like I would definitely order something like that over alcohol, like if I was out. Well, I would probably normally drink like a non-alcoholic beer, like if I'm out, like a Heineken Zero. I'm not sure if you have those there. And why? There's a couple different 0% beers, but if I had the option between that or the Decline drinks, I would definitely choose the kava.
Good. That's good for people who don't like the taste too, because the taste is a hurdle that if you don't like it, you really don't.
Yeah. But I think like some people when you're a kava drinker, you don't even notice it. It's
you don't even like whoop.
Yeah. And I mean, you might have some strong kava or some like extra peppery type of kava, and you might squint a little bit, but kava's just kava. And I mean, that's another thing that a lot of people like in Fiji, like a lot of people talk about single cultivars or cavalactones and all the stuff which is awesome to understand and know the background. But when you're in the Pacific, like kava's kava, like there's no cavalactone talk. It's just kava's kava, and it's the way it's been for the last 3,000 years, and yeah, so it's I guess you kind of have 2 worlds of kava, and in the sense that you've got how kava is in the Pacific, and then you have how kava is to the rest of the world. But hopefully, the European markets, Australia, places start to open up, post must have been almost 2 decades now with, all the European bans on kava, on misinformation and, the misunderstanding of kava. So, hopefully things, I mean, it can only go one way. It's just up for kava, really, which will benefit everyone that's involved.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I can't wait till it's not banned in like Europe and Australia. It'll be good for those people because it's so hard. Imagine like, oh, can't get kava.
and once the borders open, and then you can, I'd like to come over and check out Hawaii and catch up with yourself and just see how they do things differently around the South Pacific. Get to Vanuatu, Tonga.
Right. I do. I would love for you to come out. You can stay with me. We got a house, whole family.
I came. When was it? 2016 to I was at in Waikiki. It was actually for rugby league, and we played at is it Ohana, the stadium?
Aloha Stadium.
Aloha, yeah. So we played rugby league against. It was like a must have been 4 teams. It was Fiji, Canada, and then Samoa and Tonga played each other. But it was only a week. It was too short. I wish I'd stayed a bit longer.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a beautiful place, honestly.
Yeah.
Just like New Zealand is, you know, so much culture, so much to do. Bula.
Bula. Yeah, and I mean, and I guess back to your question about the New Zealand market, there's a huge opportunity too with Kava and the indigenous people of Aotearoa being Maori, because Maori have links to Polynesia, or are, I guess, part of Polynesia as well, or traveled through, is it Hawaii, or, you know, through the Pacific to get to New Zealand. And so there would be a history of Kava. And I remember having some Kava. There was a mate of mine who's Tongan, and there was 3 Maori guys, and one of them, he wouldn't drink the Kava. He just said, "Oh no," like, because he doesn't drink alcohol, and so he just assumed that Kava was alcoholic. And so, you know, we tried to explain what Kava was, and then, you know, we had a few basins, and, you know, he was blown away by Kava. He was just like, he was just so wrongly informed, or even he wasn't even informed. It was just assumptions of what Kava was. And he for his communities, and he was doing a lot of rehab stuff with gangs, and like, or what we call P or ice. I'm not sure if it's as bad like over in the US, but, you know, it's a problem here in New Zealand. And having a natural you know, alternative for people to, you know, deal with anxiety and insomnia and so forth, or just connect with people. You know, he saw huge benefits with Kava, and, you know, being able to tie it back, because from a spiritual sense, they could see the correlation with Kava. And from my memory, he was explaining how in their culture they believe that, you know, when you pass on into the afterlife, that you travel back through, your spirit goes back through, I guess, the north of New Zealand into the Pacific, and retraces its steps back to where you originated from.
Oh, I love that.
I can't remember exactly what the name of it was in a mythical sense. And so yeah, it just had a whole lot of connections with Kava. So yeah, I think it's an exciting business, I guess, for all the setbacks and challenges that it brings. There's also, you know, so much reward, I guess, and then also just dealing with people that, you know, how, and hearing the stories about how Kava, you know, has changed or impacted their lives for the better. And yeah, just connecting with different people. It's awesome to be involved, I guess, in the Kava industry.
I love that. It is such a wait, shoots. I'm almost out of Kava. Are you?
Yeah, I still got that shot I'll have as well. So you drink, I've got some frozen Kava too in the in my deep freezer downstairs, but it's just a bit of a mission in terms of defrosting and mixing it up, whereas chucking it in an alu ball is quick and easy. We've actually got I got some coffee grinders, so we're starting to sell. So we got a shipment coming this week from Fiji, and probably later this month we'll have another shipment coming in from Tonga. But we've when you're dealing directly with farmers, you can kind of isolate the different varieties. So we've got 3 different varieties, but what we're doing is we're importing the whole roots. So we're kind of giving customers the option. And so, I mean, they don't have to buy it from us, but we've got like a little coffee grinder, which might do, say, 70 grams, 50 to 100 grams. And so we can just vacuum pack the whole roots. Because the thing too with powder, like anything, like any part of the plant, I mean, not so much the leaves, but if we go through the different parts of the plant, you have, in Fijian terms, you call it the waka, the lateral roots. You have the Lawena, and so the Lawena is in two parts, being we call it black or white Lawena. White Lawena is primarily for export, so that's when the what we call vivi, which means the skin is peeled off. So that's quite high in like flava car veins, but also has a decent amount of cavalactones in it as well. But it's less desirable, so people generally peel that off because they want a smoother kava. And then you have what's called the cut piece, which is kind of like between the Lawena and the stem, or what we would call the kasa. So yeah, when with kava, it might say waka, but you really don't know.
You don't know
what's actually in it. And like I've had, because we've got this carbolytic spectrometer, you can just test the kava, and like there's a range of what waka should be in, and Lawena and so forth. So you can tell pretty soon. I mean, not just by trying the kava as well, but you can tell if people are playing with the mix from that sense. So we thought, give people the option of saying, look, we can process it for you and package it up, or and it's probably fresher too, in the sense like people can freeze. If you're abroad, you just freeze the waka, and then we're going to actually. I went and got some of the materials today. So in the villages, they don't have the pounding machines or hammer mills or grinders. They have a thing called a tambili and tuki, and so the tambili is like a metal repurposed. I don't even know what it is, but it's like a tall bowl type shaped steel long bowl, and then you've got a steel pipe that pounds the kava, and so that's how it's always been done. And so we're going to start selling some of those as well as the coffee grinder. So so people can, and also with the having the whole roots, you can still maintain that cultural aspect, because in a Fijian sense, waka is integral to all aspects of your cultural life, in the sense that, like, let's say you have a problem with a neighbor or a family member, or some sort of dispute, it's generally resolved over kava. And it's not so much turning up with pounded kava, it's the act, which is called a sebu, and it's going with the waka roots, and it's kind of it's your gesture of goodwill, that you want to put the past behind you and reconcile. And there's an obligation on the person who's receiving it to let that resentment and that stuff go, and kind of just forgive and forget and move on, because that person's come in their humble sense, put their pride aside, and that whole kava, the waka roots itself, signifies that. And then whether you're getting married and you want to, like, instead of asking for the blessing from the father, you would take kava. Quite often what you should do is also take a thing called a tambua, which is a whale's tooth, which has cultural significance in Fiji. If anytime you're getting land, like when we've got 3 leases, kava, you can't get the land unless you present kava, traditionally speaking. Business relationships, family members, when you haven't been to visit someone in a long time, or you're returning home, you take the waka roots. So that's kind of what we're wanting to do for, I guess, the traditional or the diaspora of the Pacific living outside. They can still kind of maintain those cultural protocols instead of just settling for pounded kava as a
I'm sure it's different too, when you have the whole root in your hand versus just a bag of pounded kava. When you see the roots, it's like, really, it's better.
Definitely. And I mean, that's how it's been done for thousands of years. So I mean, the only reason it's changed is because you can't get access to the roots. So I guess that's what we're trying to do as well.
Love that. And then you guys still have Tanoas for sale, yeah?
Yeah, I was actually looking at I'd seen someone had posted like in a group Kava group chat the like laser printed belos, and like a few of the Kava bars have them. I think most common place to get them is out of Vietnam.
Oh,
and they're really nice, beautifully crafted belos. Whereas in Fiji, it's just it's a source of income for women in the village. So with you sell the copra to the copra mill, and then the leftover coconut shells you can make into belos. So they're not as fancy as the Vietnamese ones. But anyway, I saw it being used with a laser printer, and I was thinking I should see if I can get a laser printer for like custom engravings for Tanoas. So yeah, that's something we want to offer, I guess, maybe second part of the year. And we just started doing some custom Tanoas. We sent one over to Utah, which the customer was stoked with, and I was pretty stoked how it came out as well. And yeah, what else are we doing? Yeah, anything kind of Kava related, we're trying to offer it. We'll give people the option.
The link to your website. So I know, like, if you go to wakanavu.com, right? That's what it is.
Yeah, yep.
Get Tanoas, merch, belos, Kava. I'm excited. Kava roots.
Yeah, I'll have to send some over to you. And then I think hopefully, not internationally, but for the New Zealand market, we're going to want to try and do frozen Kava.
Nice.
And frozen Kava is very difficult to do. And I mean, it's fine for America because, you've got the resources and means being in Hawaii, big deep freezers and chillers and stuff. But, when you're in the Pacific and in isolated areas, it's not easy, I guess, to do that. And you've also got to see that majority of the Kava that's consumed from an export perspective from Fiji, it's always dried Kava. That's how it's purchased. So farmer comes into town, local markets, generally speaking, there'd be a whole lot of middlemen.
It's all the Kava.
Yeah, generally Indo-Fijian. So the indigenous Fijians have majority of the land, and they're generally the ones that are farming the Kava. And then the Indo-Fijians or Fijian Indians are the ones that are on the business export middleman kind of side of things. And so then it'll go from the farmer to the middleman, and then quite often it'll go from a market type middleman to a bigger middleman or an exporter. But it's always traded in the whole root form, dried, the chips, and so forth. Like no one's going to buy the powder of someone else because you just don't know what it is. And then when it goes for export, that's when it's pounded. And I mean, that's where it comes to once it's more cost effective to process in the Pacific, because the volumetric weight would be through the roof. If you had to pay for volumetric weight of the Kava and opposed to being pounded. But I mean, as soon as people start to, on a wholesale level, play around with mixes and reduce the quality, then the customer is just going to go elsewhere. But I mean, it's not good for the Kava industry in that sense. But yeah, in Fiji, like there's so many people that are involved in the Kava industry, whether it's we talked about the farmers, the middleman, the exporters, but then people just sell it from home, just to make a living. They have a sign outside, it'd be like Kava, it might have been like $1 or $2 bags, and then now it's like $5 bags, and then word of mouth, people say that this place has got the Kava's bang in there, or it's hot, and then it sells quick.